week 12 of the fantasy baseball season, and he has a few hitters I would look to drop this week. The first guy is Carson Kelly of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Kelly, in the early going of the season, it looked like he was going to have a breakout and a big season, but that just hasn't been the case. He was on the injured list a few weeks ago, and now he's entered right back on the injured list with a fractured right wrist that'll probably cost him 6 to 8 weeks. So right now, Kelly's an easy drop in my opinion. And on the season, 8 home runs, 26 RBIs, 22 runs scored, a 260 batting average, and a 385 on base percentage. But the last couple weeks before he went down with the injury, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored, a 214 batting average, and a 313 on base. So right now he wasn't producing really, and he wasn't doing much at the plate to garner much fantasy value anymore. Now with the injury, it just put it over the top as a guy that's easy to drop this week. And so far, he's been dropped in 18% of leagues. So the last few games for him before he went down: June 14th at San Francisco, 3 for 4 with a homer and 2 RBIs. June 15th at Frisco, 1 for 4 with a run. June 17th, 0 for 3 versus the Giants. June 18th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 3. And June 19th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 1 in that one. So he fractured the wrist in that June 19th game versus the Dodgers, and now it's going to cost him 6 to 8 weeks. And right now, he's not a fantasy option. And the first hitter I would look to drop this week, the second hitter is Patrick Wisdom of the Chicago Cubs. So Wisdom, he was a hot waiver wire pickup from weeks 9 to 11, but right now he's definitely struggled. And he hasn't played every day now the last couple games here for the Cubs. On the season, 9 home runs, 13 RBIs, 15 runs scored, 286 batting average, and a 351 on base. And this is only in 70 at bats that he got to the 9 home run total. But the last couple weeks for him, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 176 batting average, and a 243 on base. So right now, pitches, they're starting to figure out Wisdom. A lot of breaking ball stuff, and he's only got 1 hit now, is Wisdom, in the last 4 ball games. So he's struggling, he's not hitting for power, and his strikeout rate's going up. So right now, he don't really is worthy of a roster spot. In the last few games for him: June 15th at the Mets, 1 for 3 with a run. June 16th at the Mets, 0 for 2 with a run. June 18th versus Miami, 0 for 4. June 19th versus Miami, 0 for 1. June 20th versus Miami, 1 for 2 with a run in a pinch hit appearance. And then June 21st versus Cleveland, 0 for 4 with the Golden Sombrero. So right now, he's not producing. He's not playing each game here is Wisdom. And right now, he's a player I think people could get away from unless he picks it up once again. And right now, he's been dropped already in 14% of fantasy leagues this week. And Wisdom would be a drop. The next hitter I look to drop is Anthony Santander of the Baltimore Orioles. I know Santander's got 30 to 35 home run power, but so far this season he was out early in the year with an injury that cost him about 4 or 5 weeks, and now he's banged up again with an ankle injury soreness. So right here on the season for Santander, only 4 home runs, 16 RBIs, 15 runs scored, a 239 batting average, and only a 270 on base. So that on base to batting average ratio isn't good at all. So he's not reaching base unless he gets a hit pretty much here is Santander. In the last couple weeks, he just hasn't done anything. 1 home run, 1 RBI, 3 runs scored, an awful 159 batting average, and a 196 on base. So right now, he's not producing. He's not getting hits, and he's an easy guy, in my opinion, to drop, even though I know what his potential could be is Santander. But with the injuries and the struggles, this is a week to get away from him. So the last few games for him: June 14th at Cleveland, 1 for 4 with a run. June 15th at Cleveland, 1 for 4. June 16th, he pinched hit at Cleveland, 0 for 1. June 17th at Cleveland, 1 for 4. June 18th versus the Blue Jays, 0 for 4. June 19th versus the Blue Jays, 1 for 4. And June 20th versus the Blue Jays, 0 for 3. And he sat out yesterday's game versus Houston. So right now, just nothing. There's no substance. There's no stats really. And he's banged up. So right now, he's an easy drop here is Anthony Santander. This week, the next hitter I look to drop is Mike Moustakas of the Cincinnati Reds. So Moose, he was on the loose and off to a great start before he went down with a heel injury. And then a couple days ago, he was on rehab assignment and he re-aggravated it. And now he's been transferred to the 60-day DL, so who knows when we're going to see him. And it'll probably be towards the end of July or early August maybe. But so far in the season for Moustakis, in only 87 at bats, 4 home runs he had, 13 RBIs, 15 runs scored, a 241 batting average, and a 337 on base. So we know Moustakis to be a guy that has good power, has good pop, and he's going to have decent RBIs as well when the season's all said and done. And plus, he plays in a small ballpark like Cincinnati, especially in the hot summer months where that ball really carries. And you see games where both teams combined can hit 8 to 10 home runs some nights. But right now, he's injured, he's banged up, and we don't know when he's going to come back. The reports have it mid-July to end July. But right now, I just don't know because they pulled him off the rehab and they quickly transferred him to the 60-day DL. So right now, I just can't trust Moustakis as a stash, especially with a lot of injuries going on around the league the last couple weeks here. So right now, I think he's an easy drop. And hey, if we know when he's coming back sooner than later, then you could go back out there and add him. But right now, I have him as a drop this week. And the fifth and final hitter, I would look to drop this week Sherman Mercedes of the Chicago White Sox. So Mercedes, early in the season, he was off to a torrid start with a high batting average. But he was a guy I knew just it wouldn't stay up to par. And he was a guy I said many weeks to sell high in my sell high videos. And right now on the season, 7 home runs, 34 RBIs, 22 runs scored, a 266 batting average, which early in the year that batting average was at 400 about in 100 at bats and a 321 on base in the last couple weeks here for Mercedes. He's been non-existent for the White Sox or fantasy owners. No home runs, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored, a 137 batting average, and a 158 on base. So right there, those numbers aren't going to do much. And the other thing with him, he only qualifies at utility and plays DH. So in National League ballparks, he's missed a few games, obviously, this season because he just can't play the field. And he's a total DH here for the White Sox. In the last few games for Mercedes, he just hasn't even played every day as well. June 14th versus Tampa 0-4. June 15th versus Tampa 0-4. June 16th, they benched him. June 17th 0-4. June 18th at Houston, they benched him. June 19th at Houston 0-4. June 20th at Houston 0-3. So right now, Mercedes, he hasn't got a hit since June 12th versus the Detroit Tigers. So right now, he isn't producing. He isn't playing much, and he's not playing every day. And right now, I think this week he's an easy drop, and he's been already dropped in 8% of fantasy leagues. So that's a few hitters I would look to drop here in week 12 of the fantasy baseball season.